Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. I hope you are doing well. I am getting over being sick and I'm developing my immunity again, working with a bunch of elementary kids every day who are coughing all over the place. I have been healing from a sinus infection. That's how it goes. I remember when I first started teaching elementary music that's what happened. I actually had 8 sinus infections in 1 year, believe it or not. It was a lot, but I know that also you get start to get used to it at some point. So I hope that point is soon because I can't do everything that I want to do and I can't sing when I have no voice. But I wanted to remind you that tomorrow, February 27th, is our next convocation. I think we have a huge lineup tomorrow. We have a lot of students who are going to be performing, and I'm so excited because we're going to have some singers on there. We're going to have some piano players, some cello players, some violin players, and I'm very, very excited to hear everyone play. This is kind of the time of year when everybody has learned some pieces that they would like to be able to show off and to be able to get experience performing in front of others. It's such a great way to grow our confidence, to challenge yourself, and to step out of, what's comfortable. And it's such a positive experience. We are not sitting there tearing anyone down. We are building you up. We are finding the parts about your performance that went really, really well and help you with the other parts, because that's how we get better as musicians. I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience as far as working with elementary music students again. One of the highlights of my experience as far as starting the chorus, and my chorus is huge. It's fourth and fifth graders, and there's 40 kids. I could not believe it. So many students. And so we are getting ready to do a mashup of Wicked and The Wizard of Oz. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. And so lots of Elphabas and lots of Glindas and lots of Dorothys and Tin Mans, and it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have lots of cool costumes and some backdrops and stuff like that. And we're kind of write a story that goes along with this that um, kind of weaves the two stories together. But one of the things that I have been talking about in all of my classes, but mainly the third through fifth grade, talking about singing. We are learning how to sing. And I mean, they've been doing that, I'm sure, all along with their other music teacher, but I wanted to talk to them a bit about it. And something that I've noticed is that sometimes students, when they are singing for each other, sometimes there might be laughing and I understand it's not something that's a usual thing. We're not sitting here usually listening to people sing, but something that I have noticed when I have taught adults a lot of the time is that a lot of these adults did not learn to sing for a long time, or did not come in for voice lessons for a long time because they were told when they were my students' age, my elementary age students, that they couldn't sing, that they shouldn't sing, that um, that they were laughed at and they were made fun of, and it really affected them. And students don't realize how weighty or how much um yeah, how much weight it can be put on when somebody, or pressure can be put on when somebody says you can't do something, or somebody makes fun of you for doing something, can add to trauma. It can add to trauma and it can affect your voice. Again, like I said, I had a lot of adults who had just literally stopped singing at that point. But then, and also, if you don't stop singing, it can affect your voice because then you are self-conscious. And how we perceive our own voice is, I argue, is not the actual way that we sound. The way that we sound is how others hear us. Because we hear ourselves through our head, and there is this thing called ossia in our near our ear that actually muffle the sound. And so we don't hear our sound the way others hear it. So there's a freedom in that because then we're not solely reliant upon of how we hear ourselves. But then also it can be kind of scary that we don't have that to fall back on to be able to adjust because of our own ear. Now, there are some parts of singing that we can hear. I mean, we can hear something, obviously. It's just, I would argue, not the clear thing. And my voice teacher always tells me that we don't rely on how we sound when we sing, and we don't rely on how we feel when we sing. So, which is scary because it's like, okay, then what do you have to rely on? And I think to a certain point, you do have you have feeling to rely on, and again, to some point, you do have hearing and to rely on, but that's only to a certain point, and then it's deceiving. I think that a lot of singers, we believe that there is more bass in our sound than we actually have. So we tend to not sing with as much balance as we want. We want the balance of the bass and the high notes. So the fundamental or the bottom part of the frequency, and then also the higher parts of the frequency. We want all of that. And I think overall singers, we don't hear the bass in our sound, or we hear bass that's not there. So we need more of the lower partials, the lower frequencies. And so it might, when you're sounding correctly, when you're singing efficiently and free, it might sound a little bit on the lower end of the pitch. And now, sometimes that actually means you're singing flat, but sometimes that means that you're singing with more balance, that you're including more of the lower frequencies. But basically, the gist of this is to not really rely on how it sounds. Again, being able to feel it. Now, I mean, you can start to feel when you have tension. And the technique that I teach, there are 5 levels of awareness of what your body is doing when it's doing it. And so if you don't you're not aware of the tension that you're holding, if you're not aware of like the big vein popping out of your neck when you're singing, or if you have to make a certain face, or you have to like scrunch your eyebrows, or you have to, yeah, make a funny face. If you ever watch the competitions and you watch them, and I just wonder, are they making funny faces because they have to in order to be able to get the sound out, or because it's for effect? You want it to be able to be for effect, and not because you have to make a face to make the sound. And so these things, when people tell us we can't sing, or they make fun of us, or they, pick us apart, it really can cause more tension. We think, oh, this is flat, so therefore I must sing higher, or I must use higher frequencies. So sometimes that means that equates to people in people's minds that it needs to be more nasal. And so on TikTok today, I talked about nasality. I think a lot of teachers um, don't realize how much their students are singing with too much nasal resonance. And how sometimes it's not very obvious. Sometimes it's not like, oh, this person is singing nasal. Sometimes it's not, you can't hear that it sounds nasal. I know for a fact because I've heard it in my students. But if your student is singing consistently under pitch, if they're having issues with pitch, if they're tight, if they're tense, if the sound is shrill, or there's any edge to the sound at all. There should never be edge to the sound unless it's for effect. Unless like you're in a musical or a show or something where you have to cry out and there has to be that edge. Otherwise, you don't want edge in your sound. You want beauty in your sound. You want freedom in your sound. You want a roundedness to your sound, not an edginess. And so the majority of time, if it sounds tight or pressed or tense or nasal, I have found when more often than not, it's because students are nasal. And a way you can test this is by having the student close their nose so they can breathe in through their mouth and not breathe in their nose at all. Because the time that the sound goes out of the mouth, the breath goes out of the mouth, when it goes out of the nose, it's gone. So you're using more energy for less sound. You want all of the sound to come straight out as much as possible. Now, there is gonna maybe be a little bit of nasal resonance involved, but not 100% and not even a higher percentage. So, you want it to come out of your mouth. You want it to be a straight shot out. You want it to be that it is just this efficient air. And so if you're breathing in and it's halfway coming out of your nose and out of your mouth, then it's not efficient anymore. So test it. Test it. Can you breathe in through your mouth and then sing? Doesn't mean that it has to be far back sounding. It doesn't mean that it has to be dark sounding. It can still be very forward. It can be still very forward singing. It just does not need to be nasal. Nasality causes tension. So again, that was a little bit of a tangent, but I would just say that our words have such power and how we say things to people, even when we're joking around and it's our sibling when we're young. And oh, don't sing, don't sing. Oh, you're gonna break the glass and you're gonna make dogs bark. That stuff, while it seems innocent enough, it seems like it's not a big deal, can really affect someone singing. It can literally change how they sing. And even if you're there's some part of what you're saying that there's maybe an element of truth there, that maybe they need a little bit more work. The words have power. And even as kids, we can control what we say to each other. We can. And so one of the big things about convocation is that we start to learn how to give feedback in a positive way. I've seen a lot of negativity when it comes to musicians sometimes, and I think it's also being able to be behind a screen and watching something online or watching something on TV. It's easy to say, "Oh, I don't like this person. I don't like their voice." Blah blah blah. But practice giving specifics. Practice saying, "Oh, I don't like that." Practice saying, "Ooh, that singer was a little bit flat on this pitch," and maybe kind of figure out some ways that maybe that you could help them. So even in that and kind of quizzing yourself like that is going to help you in the future to not completely shame someone for doing something, but to look at the action itself, look at the and coming from it in a helpful way, right? And that we want people to become better, that we're a team for them to become better, not that we're there to just tear them down and not have any thought about it or anything. And I just think that's going to help so much. So in convocation, we work on giving feedback in a specific way, but then also as positive as we can make it. And some people on TikTok, we were talking about positivity. Here's how you can make it positive. Do you have a rapport with the person who just performed? If you don't know them, could you say something positive about what they've done first before you give them something to work on? That is a way to develop a positive rapport, right? And that is, I think, positive because then you're able then to give, hey, another piece of feedback that's maybe something didn't quite work out as well that and that maybe you could help them. It will kind of balance it a little bit more because then they're used to because then they feel built up. They feel like they're not being torn down. And that's what we don't want. It's so easy to tear each other down. It's so easy. I see it a lot. And little small micro things, I see how it's done. And I think this is how we can change the community. This is how we can change each other. This is how music and classical music comes back. We stop feeling like it's so elitist that only a certain person can do it, only a certain type of person can do it. No, anybody, I argue, anybody can sing. There are very few people in this world who are actually tone deaf. Now, some people have to learn how to sing, they have to learn how their muscle works. And I always tell this story. When I first started teaching voice lessons years ago, I was teaching one summer to this guy who had been a Carolina cheerleader and had graduated and was going to be moving on to New York, and he was going to be working on Wall Street, and he wanted to learn how to sing so he could be in some community theater. And so we started out this summer. I remember perfectly. We started out this summer, and he could not match pitch no matter what I did. I would sing and I would have him echo and an octave lower, and he couldn't do it. And then I had him play. I played the piano and I had him try, and he couldn't do it. And eventually I think I got my stepdad at this point to sing something, and he was able to match that pitch. And then it was like a jumping off point. And then he was able to hear my pitch and be able to do the octave lower. And then he was able to do it from the piano. And by the end of the summer, he was singing really well. And he just needed to know how it felt in his throat. He just needed to know how it felt to conceptualize it and to be able to do it. And then he was able to do it. It was great. And so I'm a firm believer that anybody can sing who wants to be able to sing. There are very few people who are actually tone deaf. And so don't this doesn't just go for singing, this goes for all instruments. Don't tell someone they can't play. Don't discourage someone from playing. If it's bothering you, then maybe you have some boundaries about when they play or, but don't discourage or shame people for playing, right? This is how they learn. And we're gonna make bad sounds. Musicians make bad sounds. That's how we learn, right? We don't need you to sit there and say you shouldn't do this because you made a bad sound. Are you saying that if you get one bad grade in school that you should just not do school anymore because you messed up? No, we learn from doing. We learn from failing. We learn from learning and getting better and getting better. And I think sometimes that as a society, we are quick to cut things off. We are quick to say, nope. And I know I've been guilty of it. I have totally been guilty of it, but we have to be able to have some imagination. We have to believe in each other. We are a team. We are a team. We are not against each other. And I wish that that felt like that more. And I think it will if we can just like keep this trajectory going, that musicians are not competing against each other all the time. Yes, there are going to be times where we have a competition or we have something, and that let that be the competition then. But off of the stage, we are not competing with each other. We are all learners. We are all learning together. None of us know everything. None of us have completely made it. I have not completely made it. I'm not to level 5 of my technique. I am still learning. I am a forever learner. And I know that other musicians are. I know that many major metropolitan opera stars are also still going to voice teachers every now and then to check in and make sure everything is going well. It's because there is no, I've made it. You keep going, you keep learning. Now, you can be proud of what you've done. You can see all of what you have achieved, all the levels that you've been able to get to, but you will never be perfect. And there is a beauty in that, but there's also a freedom in that too, and an acceptance in that too, right? But I think this idea of shaming each other has got to go, because I think that's one of the reasons that classical music is not as prevalent anymore. People don't feel that connection to it anymore because they associate it with rigidity, with shaming, with only a certain type of person can do it. And so a lot of my parents of students here, I bet you had some dream at some point to play an instrument, or they played an instrument and they stopped it because they got discouraged and they felt shamed. And so I'm just on a mission that if I leave there, that's what I want people to take away from this more than anything else, is that you can do anything you want to do. You have to be creative with it, but you can do whatever you want. Don't let anyone tell you. And matter of fact, the people should not be telling you that you can't do it, because they don't know. They don't predict. They don't know the future. They don't know what you can do or not. They don't know what you're capable of. Only you do. And even you have to learn. You don't always know, right? So these kids I see in class who are just like laughing or snickering at someone who's been brave enough to get up. In every class, I allow a student who would like to perform for everybody while they're in the line getting ready to go. they're welcome to do so. And it's not just music. Sometimes we have comedy acts, and so them saying some jokes. Or today we had some people dancing. They choreographed a dance, which was really cool. We had a student yesterday who actually wrote a little skit and had people perform his skit. It was really cool. And to have people snickering or to make little comments under their breath or like looking at their friend and like, I can't believe they did that. I mean, it's just mean. It's just mean. And I know they don't think it's any big deal. It's just another day, but you have no idea how it affects other people. You have no idea. I know when I was in fifth grade, and this is so embarrassing, the musical West Side Story was popular. I mean, it's still popular now, but there is a song called I Like to Be in America. Okay, by me in America. Everything free in America for. So, like, I got dressed up for the talent show and performed it. And I think to myself, had I done that now, I probably would have been laughed off the stage by some of the students. And I hope that that didn't happen when I was then because I was just carefree and enjoying music so much. And then you get to a point where you're aware of what people are thinking about you, and then it's like not as free anymore. And I just think that if we can help just building each other up and supporting each other as much as possible and like believing in each other and taking it seriously, I just think we might have a lot more musicians on our hands. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, well, on that note, I hope to see a lot of you tomorrow at Convocation. And again in a month, exactly a month, we have our faculty recital. And so more information about that. And then I think a month after that, we have our competition. And so we have big things coming up. Also, I've been late on this, but I have an excuse since I've been also teaching at the elementary school. We will have summer lessons, and I'm thinking about doing a camp or an after school thing or something for or an I don't know a camp thing this summer. I don't know though. I don't know. But the registration will hopefully be out pretty soon within the next few weeks. So on that note, I will see you soon. Bye.